Well, good morning, folks. Welcome back to 3 Zen. Bobo here. So, last week I had a video wherein I talked about a dual engine failure that occurred at Columbus around 1979, and it generated a few questions. And as I began answering those questions and thinking about it, I remembered a few more things that I neglected to include in the original video. So if you do the Gozentas here, 1979 from 2024 is 45 years. I don't have a copy of the accident report, so it all has to come out of the memory bank, and I did omit a couple things. So I'm going to talk about those here and hopefully provide a little bit more clarity about this whole thing. So to review, the student and the instructor were on a contact ride, and the instructor had set the student up for a vertical recovery. Now we would put the nose in a nose high attitude, canter off a little bit sometimes like that, power around 90-95%, and we get it like that. We tell the student, okay, recover. About this time the airspeed should be around 220, 230 maybe, I don't know. Gives them plenty of time to take the airplane, identify the nearest horizon, and then roll to it. And then you want to roll to it and then pull the nose down a little bit through the horizon and then roll wings level. All at the same time advancing the power to military power. I've done hundreds of those, never had any problem with them. But in this particular case, when the IP gave the airplane to the student, he took the airplane as he started the roll and got somewhere into the actual recovery. The right engine flame failed. It rolled back. We don't think it flamed out because they never reported total loss of EGT. So if you have fire in the engine's running. It just may not be running the way you'd like it to. So now they come down like this. And as they get in this attitude here, the IP takes the airplane, seeing the engine had failed. He's got other issues to work with. He rolls the airplane in wings level, and he snatches the throttles to idle. Never knew why he did that. Don't know why he did that. But at any rate, he did. So during that process, and the second engine says, well, hell, I don't like this either, so it rolled back. So he ended up here now around 19,000 feet. His airspeed is probably around, I would think around 185, 180 or something like that. And he's at idle power, and the airplane starts coming downhill, as you might expect. So he takes the throttles and goes up to mill. Well, he doesn't have enough airflow through the intakes for the engines to recover. They think of it as a stalled engine, if you will. So they sit there, and as he pushes the power up, the EGT starts to rise, but the RPM, it's just a mess. So anyway, they're coming downhill like that. Then he pulls the power back to idle again, and when Bob Seeley and I got into his room there at the clinic, we asked him and said, or Bob did, and Bob's the rocket scientist I used to hang out with in flight safety. So Bob asked him, he says, what was your airspeed? And he said, it was 185 plus or minus 5-6 knots, whatever it was. And at that point, Bob looked at me, and I distinctly remember, okay. And then he said to him, did you ever think about going into the checklist? And he said, no, sir. He says, I didn't have time. Now, that's a perception issue there. He said, I didn't have time. Okay, so Bob and I kind of glanced at each other and just kind of let that go. And then he talked about going from idle power to mill, back to idle, hitting the start button, trying all this, and to no avail. Meantime, the airplane just continues to sink down. The rest of the story is pretty accurate that I discussed in the first video. But the engine flight or restart during flight checklist here says altitude 26,000 feet or below, airspeed 250 to 310. Now, had he gone to that step and lowered the nose to pick up 250 minimum, more than a good chance those engines would have recovered on their own. Battery switch on. Well, there was no reason that battery switch should have been off. Fuel boost pump switches, check on. Again, those things should have been on. No issues with those. Engine start button. This assumes a single engine failure. So engine start button push momentarily. Throttle when milling engine. Advance slightly above idle, then retard to idle. The recovery, I have no doubt, would have worked fine had he actually gone to the checklist. But for some reason, he perceived he didn't have enough time to do that. So then they continued on with a couple other attempts to restart at 185, and it just wasn't going to do it. So he subsequently jumped out. When he jumped out, the airplane, he was holding the airplane, and when he jumped out, the nose came down. Now it got upwards of 250 or whatever, and the engines recovered fine. I think he said he left the throttles in afterburner when he jumped out, and the engines relit and then went into full AB. That's when the student looked in front, saw a cloud, so he takes the airplane, flies around, and then he to stay in the clear, he didn't want to bail out in the cloud. And then when he bailed out, we asked him what the airspeed was when he bailed out. He said, "So it's being 350 knots, the best I can remember." It's hard, but you want it. Why did you jump out of the damn thing? Anyway, it let it go. So that was kind of the essence of that. Now, I want to give you a little background on the student or the IP here, and I want to be a little careful. I have no intention of blaming this kid. He was a new instructor. He was apprehensive about flying the 38 when he had been FAR qualified, Fighter Attack Reconnaissance, which you had to carry to get an IP slot. He told him he didn't want to be an IP, but the command brought him back anyway. So he said, okay, if I come back, I'd like to be in T-37s. But they said, no, we need you in T-38. So you had this guy didn't want to come back as an IP, and he wanted to go into tweets. He didn't want to fly the T-38. So there was a lot of apprehension in that area there. I don't remember if that came out in the findings, causes, and recommendations or not. It's been too long. And my God, it's been 45 years. That happened in 1979. So anyway, you had this guy that was apprehensive about this. Did he panic? Probably. At any rate, we go through these. We look at them very hard during these accident investigations to determine findings, causes, and recommendations. And I don't have a copy of that report. I wouldn't have. But I don't have a Corvette in my driveway, in my garage either. But anyway, I can be so snarky at times. Anyway, so the findings were that he could keep his wings, but because of everything associated with this accident at the base, it'd probably be best to send them on to another aircraft somewhere and let them start over. And that's what they did. And I kind of agree. The guy just made a mistake, and so he was given a second chance. And I sincerely hope he had a good career moving on. But that helps. Hopefully that helps answer some of the questions you've had here about why this happened or why that happened or how this happened. Basically, inappropriate recovery technique contributed to it. Had he gone to the checklist, he would have more than likely recovered the engines, and I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you about this. One thing is kind of interesting, though. In 1970-71, one of the syllabus items was to shut down an engine in flight. When I was going through pilot training, so we'd take off on a ride, and we go up to the area, and we'd shut an engine down. Actually, shut it down, and then we go through this restart and start it up, and then continue on our way. And that was kind of slick. But the reason they took it out of the syllabus was they were having too many aircraft coming back single engine because the damn thing wouldn't restart. I just thought of that too. But at any rate, hopefully that provides a little bit of clarity, and we'll leave it at that. This is Bobo, Base Gear. Stop.